I never imagined I'd become the primary target of a neighborhood tyrant, but here we are. My name is Marcus, and I moved into Willow Bend Estates 3 years ago, shortly after a car accident left me with limited mobility in my right leg. The community seemed ideal at first: quiet streets, manicured lawns, and most importantly, a wide driveway suitable for my customized van. I had no idea that simply securing a disabled parking sign would ignite a storm of conflict. The person at the center of it all? Eleanor James, the president of our homeowners association, or, as many residents not so kindly refer to her, Karen. I had done everything by the book. My request for a designated disabled parking space was approved by the city, and the sign was installed on a Tuesday morning. By the next afternoon, I noticed the sign was crooked, tilting awkwardly. Curious, I reviewed my security camera footage. What I saw shocked me. Eleanor, dressed in crisp beige slacks and a pastel blue cardigan, striding up to the pole with a pair of garden shears and sawing halfway through it. I emailed her politely, referencing the video. Her reply was swift and brazen. That sign is a violation of HOA aesthetic guidelines. The board never approved it. Remove it immediately or face a daily fine of $50. I responded calmly, citing the city ordinance and the Americans with Disabilities Act, which superseded HOA rules. Her reply was chilling in its arrogance. Not in Willow Bend Estates, it doesn't. The next morning, the sign was completely severed and lying in my yard. I checked the footage again. There she was at 5:30 a.m., using what appeared to be a battery-powered electric saw. After cutting it down, she stared into the camera with a smug grin. I needed that space. On bad days, even walking 20 feet could feel like scaling a mountain. I decided to change tactics. I sent her another courteous email. I noticed the sign was damaged. I'm sure you wouldn't know anything about that, but I wanted to inform you that I will be reinstalling it, as required and permitted by city law. I included links to the relevant statutes. She replied within minutes. Any new installations must be pre-approved in writing by the HOA board. Your application is denied in advance. What Eleanor didn't know was that I'm a property attorney with a focus on zoning and municipal law. Though my practice dealt mostly with commercial properties, I knew residential codes like the back of my hand. I called a contact at the city's planning office. She sighed and said, "You're not the first resident to have trouble with this HOA. We'll reinstall the sign for you. No charge." By Friday, a new sign stood proudly in front of my home. I adjusted my security setup, adding a motion-activated camera disguised inside a birdhouse, installed with help from a neighbor who'd also been targeted by Eleanor. Sure enough, at 6 a.m. on Saturday, there she was in jogging gear, cordless reciprocating saw in hand. I watched the live feed on my phone, stunned. She began sawing the metal pole with mechanical determination. Fortunately, I had already notified the local police's non-emergency line the night before, explaining the situation. That morning, I called 911, referencing the prior report. 2 officers arrived while she was still mid-act. The look on her face as the patrol car pulled up was priceless. Eyes wide, mouth agape. She fumbled, trying to hide the saw behind her back. "Ma'am, what exactly are you doing?" one officer asked. "Board inspection," she answered without hesitation. This sign wasn't approved by the HOA Architectural Committee. Her confidence was astounding. I approached with my phone in hand and calmly showed the officers the live feed, the city permit, and documentation of prior incidents. "This is the 3rd time Ms. James has vandalized my legally installed disabled parking sign," I said. Officer Martinez, the older of the 2, smiled slightly. "Ms. James, HOA guidelines do not supersede city ordinances or federal disability laws, and they certainly don't grant permission to vandalize public property." They issued her a citation on the spot. Eleanor turned red. "Do you know who I am?" "My cousin is Councilman Gregory," she screeched. "This is outrageous." The officers shrugged. "That doesn't change the law." I thought it was over. A citation, a fine, maybe community service. But Eleanor had a gift for escalation. By that afternoon, Every homeowner in Willow Bend Estates received an emergency HOA bulletin accusing me of abusing disability accommodations. She included photos of me walking my dog and carrying groceries as proof that I was faking. That crossed a serious line. I reached out to my physician, the city's Disability Resource Center, and a colleague who specialized in discrimination cases. With their support, I filed for an emergency injunction and a restraining order against Eleanor and the HOA board. The case was assigned to Judge Valerie Hensley, known for her no-nonsense handling of HOA overreach. 2 weeks later, we stood in court. Eleanor looked defiant in a navy suit, flanked by the HOA's attorney. I represented myself, equipped with a flash drive containing video evidence, emails, and medical documentation. The HOA's attorney blustered on about neighborhood harmony and aesthetic standards. Not once did he address the core issue, Eleanor's repeated acts of vandalism and harassment. When it was my turn, I played the footage. First, Eleanor with the garden shears. Then the electric saw. Then the latest incident, with her smirking at the camera. I ended with the inflammatory email questioning my disability. Judge Hensley removed her glasses and glared at Eleanor. MS. James, are you aware that tampering with a disability accommodation is a civil rights violation? And that publicly questioning the validity of a documented disability borders on defamation? Eleanor's lawyer tried to intervene, but the judge raised a hand. This court grants the restraining order. MS. James is to remain no less than 50 feet from Mr. Franklin's property at all times. Furthermore, I'm imposing a $5,000 fine for violating civil rights laws and referring this matter to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges related to the destruction of city property. I looked at Eleanor. Her face was ashen. Her hand hovered in the air, reaching for her attorney, frozen in disbelief. Additionally, Judge Hensley continued, I am ordering MS. James to step down as HOA president, effective immediately. Her actions display a grave misunderstanding of her authority and a disturbing pattern of targeted harassment. Eleanor finally burst out. You can't do that. The bylaws don't allow. The law does, the judge cut in. And unlike HOA bylaws, my rulings are enforceable. Court officers, please escort MS. James out if she continues to interrupt. Eleanor fell silent, visibly crumbling in her chair. The courtroom, once her imagined throne, had become the stage for her public fall. Outside the courtroom, I spotted her in the hallway, staring at her phone in disbelief as she read the court order. For the first time since I'd met her, Eleanor James had nothing to say. I returned home that afternoon and finally parked in peace. The new sign still stood, untouched. My neighbors, many of whom had quietly endured her reign of petty tyranny, began stopping by to congratulate me. Justice, it turned out, wasn't just a concept. It was a court order, sealed and delivered. And it was long overdue.